Welcome to Uncomfortable, conversations about culture and Christianity. My name is Eric, and today I'm joined by Jess.
Hello, world.
And Alex.
I know God breathed on this.
Are you going to just keep singing that?
Yeah, it's just stuck in my head.
You're promoting your latest TikTok.
No, I'm promoting.
Is that an original?
It's finally out. I think we need to let the people know.
Yes. People hadn't had a Kanye update for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Do tell.
Donda has released.
Donda.
I'm pretty excited about it.
How many times have you listened through the entire album?
It's probably on repeat.
That's not a fair question.
I need to know.
If I were to guess...
Don't tell me how many times you have at work. Okay, I don't want to know that.
I know. I've listened to... It's a gospel album. I can listen to it at work.
No bad words.
I mean, at least the version that's released doesn't. I would say at least 10 times.
Okay.
At least.
Okay.
But I lost count, probably.
I am not surprised.
Have you listened at all, Jess?
Nope. But I support... Oh.
I
feel like I've disappointed you.
You disappointed me a lot.
That is disappointing.
I'm sorry. I read articles.
Yeah.
But that doesn't count. I'm sorry, Eric.
No, it's okay. It's fine. It's fine.
We're not going to let it bring us down because it's a special day.
No, it was. He said that Universal released it without his permission. So I don't know how much truth there is behind that, but there's 27 songs. It's different. I have some conspiracy theories about it, different things like that, but none, people don't want to hear that.
That's for another podcast.
Yeah.
Another podcast.
Ooh.
We'll go there some other time. There's something else bigger happening, which if people are not watching, they don't see this. Mm-hmm. But we have balloons and party hats.
Yeah.
We look like really cool people
we look
right
awesome,
now. Uh-huh.
Very confident.
I love this hat.
I'm so confident. I wore my party shirt.
And we all kind of match our hat.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
It's 100 episodes. It's a very monumental moment for the Uncomfortable podcast.
Triple figures. Here we come.
We started from the bottom, and now we're at 100.
Yep.
Yeah.
So many people just said we'd never make it. They just...
Haters.
There's just a lot of haters out there. Actually, I just made that up. I don't want to start any beef, but...
No, we're not starting beef. We love the people that listen to us, too.
I'm sure there were some people who said, you will never make it to 100.
Yeah.
The way you talked about faith deconstruction.
Let's just say we've grown a lot. Yeah. I go back and listen to some of those early episodes, and we've definitely grown a lot. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Speaking of growing a lot, what is something you could eat 100 of?
Okay, that's our banter today.
Okay, so this is our banter for today.
Yeah.
Like in one sitting?
Episode.
Yeah.
Like one sitting.
100 of. Okay.
I have my answer. Okay, you go.
Okay.
You go.
You go ahead.
No, you go, because I got to find something else.
Easy.
Okay.
I love popcorn.
So you could eat 100 popcorns.
I would choose popcorn over a sweet. Like, I love popcorn so much.
What about sweet popcorn?
I could do it, but I love
Kettle
like
corn.
Movie theater popcorn. I don't care what kind it is. I guess even the sweet. I could eat easily
100 pieces of popcorn.
Yep.
I feel like that's
Kernels.
that's like nothing though.
I love popcorn.
I know, but you could eat that. Anyone could do that pretty quickly, right? Like
I
just
agree.
a handful of popcorn, and you're like a quarter of the way there.
I will tell you my answer now.
Oh, okay.
My answer is green olives.
Ew.
Yes, I could seriously.
Eric is poo-pooing on our...
I don't like
Man, I
olives
could
so
just
much.
You could pound some olives. How many
100
jars do you think that is?
green olives. I would guess, depends on the size, but I would guess like 3. 3 just typical green olive jars.
I want this to happen.
That'd be a lot of
We all need to
sodium.
do this.
Yeah.
But
Yes, it would.
It would be good.
It'd swell up.
And but I
Not
feel
in a good
like,
way.
yeah, I could do it and not die or puke or anything like that. So
That's the...
Okay, if popcorn and olives aren't good enough for you, Eric, what is?
I just don't like. I think popcorn is delicious. I'm just saying it's
That's
not
so easy.
It's not
Yeah.
an impressive feat though.
not at all.
I was thinking more like I could eat like 100 pot
it takes
stickers.
a strong
or something.
strong woman to be with you too sometimes.
But not to eat 100 popcorn.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like I'm
That
trying
takes like
to gorge myself.
a human, like a body, to eat 100 popcorn. I mean, infants would choke on it, but they could eat 100 popcorn.
You have 4 children. I hope you weren't feeding the popcorn.
All right.
I just want you. I'm not very impressed.
We're gonna DS.
So pot stickers.
We're gonna
is your
DS.
answer?
I'm just
You
saying,
said
like
pot stickers.
that would be something I like a lot.
You could eat 100
I don't know
pot
if I could. That's
stickers.
probably not true. I might die, but I'd try. I would be happy.
I would like to see that happen.
I was just, and I suppose I'd like just miss the pearly gates to be like, oh, you're so close with that gluttonous act you committed there at the end.
Maybe if Jelly Belly comes out with a pot sticker flavored jelly bean.
Oh Lord!
Then you could have 100 of those.
That makes me want to gag because my kids make me play Bean Boozled around the holidays. Have you ever played that?
Yes, I've played it.
Absolutely terrible.
Have you had the popcorn ones?
It's absolutely terrible. They're
like
all
the
bad.
popcorn Jelly
Ugh.
Bellies? Which could you eat easier? 100 popcorn Jelly Bellies, 100 popcorn.
Still popcorn.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe
Which is true.
Like, I don't know, any like sriracha almonds. I like those a lot. I could
yeah,
eat a lot of
yeah.
those. 100 of those.
All right, we're making people
Cashews.
hungry now.
There's a lot of nuts.
Yeah, they are. There's
I
a
could eat
lot
100
of good almonds out these days. Like the wasabi.
You are an almond,
I know
an almond
you've
eater,
plugged
yeah.
these before.
I know.
Did
So
you
good.
not get enough for your
The
first
sweet
sponsorship?
chili ones are
So
good.
good. So good.
Yeah,
Anyways.
sweet chili. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean,
I guess we could ask people what they could eat 100 of.
Well, and now people know what they can send us for a gift for turning 100 episodes old.
Old bag of microwave popcorn.
I remember this. I remember a story from the band Reliant K. They had this like hidden track on their album where they sang about it was combos.
Oh yeah.
The combo, and maybe it was Skittles and combos, I think was the name of the song, a little hidden thing. And they got so sick of Skittles and combos because their fans would bring them to their shows all the time. So I'm just imagining Alex getting
How
lot
many
of almonds.
jars of? No, I said green olives.
Oh, green olives. Sorry. Yeah.
Capers. Oh wow,
Those are good too.
And that would be a lot easier to eat. They're smaller,
Oh.
but anyway, I already answered.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. If anyone's watching this and they want to let us know what they could eat 100 of.
Yeah.
Maybe you're a competitive food eater. You could eat 100 hot dogs. You dip it in water or whatever they do.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
weird. But let us know in the comment section. Last week we asked the question: what was a movie that you could quote word for word? And Mandy in the Facebook chat said fried green tomatoes.
Okay.
So I don't know
Love
if
it.
I've ever seen that movie.
It's good.
I have
It's
not
older.
seen it either, so
80s or 90s, early 90s.
Jess has seen it.
I ran into one of our other fans, Andrew, at church on Sunday, and we were talking
love
about Karate Kid. So I'm just gonna assume that's one that he
Wax on,
could
wax
quote.
off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So there, it's 100 episodes. We're really excited to be here. Like I said, who'd have
Gonna be a little
thought?
different. A little different today.
Yeah, today's episode is going to be a little different. But one thing that will not be different, one thing that's going to be here is headlines. And that's up next. And our first headline of 100 headlines. We're going to go through 100 headlines today for our 100th episode, so hang
What
tight.
entertainment.
No, I'm just kidding. No, we only got one headline. It comes from CNN.com. It says China bans kids from playing online video games during the week. But that's not even it. That's just part of the story because it's also restricting them to 3 hours on the weekend, which I don't know how much you've looked into this article. I found it kind of fascinating, but they're talking about, because my first instinct or thought, I guess, was just, well, how are they going to keep track of that? Like, how are they going to enforce it? And the plan is to have some sort of software that you have to log into to play games online. So I'm guessing if you played games offline, you could maybe get away with it, but
They
still
must have listened to the podcast last week on Screen Time, and they're really trying
yeah, we're big in China.
Limit it.
Turns out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of wild though that they are just. I mean, it's such a granular display of control, like something where
yeah.
they're just. I mean, I don't know. We'll get upset about like small government interventions in America for like the littlest things, and I mean. Imagine that though, just them trying to have like the government trying to have that much control over what you did or what your family did.
Well, to be honest, when I first read this headline, I knew this already because I have a sister named China, and she long ago banned playing video games during the week for her kids.
Oh, okay.
So Okay, that was a bad joke.
You were really proud of that joke
Alex!
before we started recording, and he just couldn't let it die.
Well, most people don't know. I have a sister named
Okay,
China.
that's a fun fact about Alex.
Fun fact, and a biological sibling, because I have a lot of adopted ones. So most assume, based on her name, that she was adopted.
I have a sister named Japan.
I don't think that's true.
Oh, okay.
Well, anyways, back to the headline. This has kind of been a long time coming. I've been following this kind of stuff going on in China the past couple months because I teach for a company, kind of have done it for a couple years as a side hustle. And the government just recently banned all foreign teaching from outside of the country to be a part of their kids' curriculum. And so they're extending school hours. They're talking right now about the kids being in school for 12 hours a day. And just a lot of, they don't even call it mandates. It's something else. You can easily Google it and find all this information out. But there's a lot of changes that are coming, and a lot of, just think about parenting in a country like that. That's very difficult. And right, like you're saying, to have different things about what you would allow and not allow your children to do during a day or a week. Yeah, that's really hard. So my job is, they've shut down at least 12 companies, and the one I work for ends at the end of this month. So yeah, they are not allowing.
Well, there is a big problem with addiction and gaming in China. Not that there probably isn't in other parts of the world, but specifically there, because there are certain types of online games that have been connected to addiction, and it seems like they're just trying to curb that in minors. But I don't know. One thing I couldn't find, and I probably could have researched it more, but like what the punishment is. I'm sure it's probably extreme, but
maybe they cut you off from the internet, or yeah. Like I'm sure they know how. They know what's going on. So.
One of the things when COVID started that they were, even before COVID came over to America, because I was hearing about it as I was online with these students and their parents. And one of the things that they do that it shocks me, because the government doesn't do this to us, but if you withhold information or you do something wrong, they'll shame your family and they'll put up signs or something around where you live. Jeez. So I don't know what could happen, but
it's crazy, man.
It's just, yeah.
And it just makes you wonder, like, is this is this shift then? If it just seems like they've always been restrictive, but they're being more and more restrictive. Is there something bigger coming? Is this just kind of early signs of something?
I don't know. There's lots of expectations.
I have nothing. I don't know.
Okay, you look like you were about to say something.
He's contemplating, but he's making
He's just really trying to come up with his next good pun about his sister.
My thought was just like, it makes me grateful, obviously, to be an American and the freedoms we have, and things like that. And so, yeah, that's it.
Proud to be an American.
Grateful and proud, but yeah.
All right. Well, that does it for headlines. Up next, we're going to continue this celebration of 100 episodes by talking about some of our favorite moments and episodes along the way that got us to this point. So hang tight. 100 episodes. This is episode 100, and this is our very, self-congratulatory moment where we just sit around and talk about how cool it is that we did 100.
Keeping it 100.
Yeah. No, but thanks to all of the listeners out there, people who've participated, all the guests we've had over 100 episodes. It's been awesome to talk to so many different people and have so many different perspectives represented. It's been good to have feedback from our listeners on all these different topics that we've tried to tackle, and especially thanks to Christ Community Church for allowing us this opportunity to tackle some topics that are very controversial in the church and not always welcomed. And I think that speaks a lot to the integrity of this church. And I know I'm thankful for it, and I think everyone around this table is very grateful for that. We asked on our personal social media accounts,
yes, we did,
what some of your favorite episodes were or moments, and we did get some feedback. Jess, do you want to kick us off with what some people mentioned to you?
Let's just go for it. So
take us down memory lane.
I posted, I'm going to share this one first. So I posted it, and I would say 30 seconds later, Marie, who's also on staff here, sends this reply. She says, my favorite episode is when Alex turned red during the interview with my in-laws. And I think she was referring to the ones about sex.
Oh,
so that was just a nice one for me to...
Yeah, well, I don't remember what moment there was, but there's plenty.
You had a couple moments in there that were fun.
Yeah.
Another one I got, I'll just share too, was the episode. Someone said, I thought the episode with Lisa Ashton was very eye-opening and made the problem of Larry Nassar really hit home.
Yeah, so
yeah.
And I think probably just not to assume everybody knows all of those, but Lisa came on and shared. She was an athlete at Michigan State, and Larry Nassar was her doctor, and so that was definitely a pretty emotional episode as we were processing that and listening.
We'll talk about more about that later for sure.
Yeah.
A couple that I got.
Do tell, Alex.
And probably everybody got this, so let's just get it out of the way.
Oh man,
okay?
I was hoping I'd get to share
probably
Me too.
One of the biggest ones was nude ball.
Yes.
Okay, so I have learned in this process to enunciate that I play noon ball.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Basketball in the afternoon.
Yes, right
noon,
at high noon, Central Standard Time.
Yeah.
With a lot of other local pastors and things like that.
12 p.m.
12 p.m. Yes, CST.
I also got those same
too.
comments.
I literally...
That was definitely a lot of people's favorite moments.
Yes.
Was listening to you react to nude ball, and
it was a beautiful moment. I feel like it was hilarious.
Being that it's a 100
know.
episodes, it's a special moment. I feel like some confession needs to happen.
We could share.
Maybe
because that was when
Okay.
that was we had anonymous questions sent in by our fans.
Yes,
we
and
did.
we put it in the boot, and we
Yes.
pulled it out, and we read it.
I came into Eric's office after you had said, Jess, will you cut all those little questions into strips and put it in the boot? And I was like, Eric, I'm being very tempted right now to insert my own questions.
And then I, who on numerous occasions heard you say noon ball and thought you said nude ball, thought, well, let's go ahead and just ask this question. And
Yes.
we made it very serious. Like, how as a Christian do you justify?
It was like a very
Playing
nude
theologically
ball.
sounding
Yeah.
question, and I was just not ready for it. I was not ready.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be, I feel like, one of our favorite moments and other people's favorite moments.
Even though
too.
it was slightly
Like it lives on.
manufactured.
We're gonna
and
keep bringing
staff
that up.
and so forth.
Because
And
you
so-
do, it is true. You kind of just let those 4 little letters just roll off your
Yeah.
tongue, and it does sound like
Yeah,
nude ball.
Yeah. All
that
right.
happens.
Got some other ones?
I have a couple others. One person responded, and they just threw out a bunch of them. So they said our episode with Connor, who was one of our during our LGBTQ plus series on sexuality. Connor just sharing his story about being gay and a Christian and all of that. Another one in that series was with one of my siblings, Precious, during that. And then our Christmas special, this person, his name is Ian, that submitted that, and he was on our Christmas special. He was kind of the brainchild, actually, as a resident of our podcast. And so those were a few of them that he highlighted. I don't want to steal all of them because I think others mentioned them. So that's a couple for me. Eric, you got any mentioned?
Well, both. I had 3 people send in responses, and one was Marie about the embarrassment that Alex faced on that episode. The other was from my friend Kyle, who really enjoyed the nude ball moment as well.
My former roommate
Yeah,
in college.
from back in college days.
Kyle.
And then shouts out to my sister Lisa, who listens. She said that her favorite episode was the 7 Deadly Sins episode.
Okay, I like it. Nice.
I had
I hope you bring up your sister because we both have today.
Yeah.
okay, yeah, my sister's coming. This is from my husband, who said, I loved Dr. Busselman and the pets conversation.
Oh,
a cool
yeah.
perspective on how God loves us through pets. My husband is definitely a dog lover.
Yeah, that
He
was
loves her.
that was definitely an interesting, conversation. Even because so many people, that's just a part of their lives. Pets are, and so how that intersects with Christianity.
My sister said, her favorite thing is when Eric and I play pranks on Alex,
Oh,
Yeah, that's fun.
aka Nude Ball, coming back again.
Diane, who was a guest on our infertility one, her and her husband Russ were on that one, and she listens a lot, and so she shared a few. One of them was our conversation with Myron and Pastor Jameson from City Light Benson, Myron from Mission Church on race and reconciliation. So we had
very
2
early
episodes on that.
episode, yeah.
And then we had some follow-up conversations with them as things have happened inside of, different racial tensions and difficult points have come up. And so that's been one that's really lived on well. She mentioned we had Tony Clark, who is the leader. I don't know what I don't remember her title, but she's the president or CEO of what is the name of the ministry? Assure Women's Clinic. And so they help find alternatives to abortion for those that are struggling. So that was one of her favorite ones. Dr. Megan Hyen, I actually wore this shirt in that one, but she came on just to talk to us about like some medical consensus and how faith and science can interact really well. And so that was a very enlightening one. And then she also mentioned, I think these are a few that I giggled about, or my red face came up with, let's talk about sex episodes with the divorce, and then birth control as well. So those are some of the ones that she really enjoyed. So thanks for listening, Diane. I know you've been a faithful listener throughout this. And so that was a smattering of a lot of different ones throughout the 100 episodes. So
yeah, it's funny that we are, as a church, celebrating 100 years right now. It's a big moment for us, and this kind of coincides with it. So it's like confusing because we keep saying 100 episodes, and I attempted to say 100 years of the podcast.
Because like literally Sunday we have like a huge 100-year party at the church, and so it is kind of fun. So
we timed it all perfectly, planned it out to be this way.
Yep.
And over those 100 episodes, Jess, you are, a mainstay now, but there were some that came before you. We had, Rachel was here, and the early days was Mackenzie. And we asked them to maybe send in a response or maybe a favorite memory or something like that. And we got a couple of responses.
I've got them. Jess you haven't heard this, and I haven't read Mackenzie's. So here's Rachel, our friend Rachel.
Let's send us a video.
Can't wait to hear from you, Rachel. Here you go.
Hey y'all! Congratulations on 100 episodes. That is so awesome and so exciting. And I know that God has been using this podcast in so many incredible ways. And I'm just so excited that you guys made it to 100 episodes. I wish I could be there with you and celebrate. And I miss you guys and just miss all of our recording times and just the fun that we had and laughing together and just talking about really hard things. And so I hope you guys are having fun without me, even though I'm in Arkansas. I miss you a lot, and I'm just so proud of you and all the hard work that you guys have been putting in the podcast. And it's clear to see that God is using this in amazing ways and just using it to reach people that might not have been reached by the gospel before. And so that's just so awesome. Just a little update on me. I am in Arkansas now, and we are so glad to be here. We missed all of our friends in Omaha, but we are really glad to be close to family and just get to be with them, and that's really awesome. Some really cool stuff that God is doing in our lives here is that we have gotten the opportunity to join a core team who is planning a church. And so we are part of that team, and we are working on building and growing a church here in Arkansas. And we're just really excited to see what God's going to do as we move forward. But I miss you guys a lot. I miss everyone. And I hope you guys have a great time celebrating 100 episodes.
Aw.
There it is, Rachel. We miss you too.
Rachel, we miss you.
Miss that southern drawl. I feel like she's picked up a little bit more.
It's coming back a little bit.
Back in Arkansas. Hey, yeah. So, and then we've got Mackenzie, Mackenzie and Rachel both were a part of like the original launch of this. And so Rachel was around for a little longer, and then Mackenzie, they both started as residents. Mackenzie left a little bit before when her residency was over. And so she sent us a message for me to read. And let me find it here. Oh, I got to I got to turn it around. This is not a part of the of the show. So
Yeah, so it feels like it's been a very long time. So if people hadn't listened for a while, they might not know who Mackenzie is. But yeah, she was
big Bachelor fan, big Applebee's fan.
Yeah.
So those types of things. So she said, "Hey, CCC Uncomfortable Podcast, Mackenzie here. I can't believe the podcast has hit 100 episodes. It's been a long time since you've seen me on the podcast, but here's an update on my life since you've last heard from me. Since my time at CCC, I've been working alongside my husband in our insurance and wealth management business here in Omaha. We absolutely love working together, and I've been so grateful for this season of life. One of my favorite episodes, sorry, I changed character there for a second, of being on the podcast was when Dave Montoya shared his experience of leaving a cult in episode 5. You truly never know the experiences of those around you may have had, and getting to hear one another's stories can be powerful. If you had the privilege of getting to know Dave while he was here, you would know he is the coolest person and a fantastic leader. I believe this story of hurt and pain in his life helped to create the person he is today, and I was so grateful to be on this episode where he was able to share a part of his story. And so Dave was a guy that was on staff here at the church. That was a fascinating episode early on as well, sharing about his experience of like not just being in a cult, but like living like literally in, I don't know what you call it.
like a commune.
Like a commune, and how he, so that was fascinating. So Mackenzie, thank you. Thanks for all your contributions to this. Sorry we haven't, we have, like, we've talked about The Bachelor since and a few of those things. So sorry you missed it.
Sorry we didn't talk about The Bachelor more while you were on the podcast. The How to Leave a Cult episode is definitely one of my favorites. I'm always fascinated by cults, and I mean in a very healthy way, of course. But it's just one of those things that it was fun to have that conversation. Why don't we take that opportunity to share what each of our favorite episodes or moments, or maybe one of each, depending on how prepared you were. Anybody want to start?
Jess, you've been on the shortest amount of time, so
you want to think a little longer? Okay,
yeah,
my favorite episode is easy because I think it was my favorite because it was the most challenging, and I started probably in the 50s, 60s,
1950s.
No, episodes.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, really, I mean, you guys kind of had like your rhythm going on, and then it was like Jess is joining the podcast.
We were like in the middle of COVID stuff right there.
Yeah. And then it was like Lisa Ashton wants to share her story, and to me, like, I hold definitely hold space for survivors of sexual abuse, and just for people that have been through these horrific situations. And so the fact that she wanted to come on and share that was, I mean, it was very challenging. It was probably, I felt a lot of pressure in that, but it was one of the most, I hate to say beautiful, but it was just like that moment of real and raw and authentic, seeing her in that, and just creating that space for her to share her story to me was, and just holding space for her during that was probably my favorite, but also my most challenging. And Lisa, we still talk about that episode with her, and I feel like that's definitely been the most impactful for me.
Good. I think for me, probably my favorite, and again, it was probably one of the most difficult, and we did 2 episodes on this, but it was on grief. And so there's just a personal connection to Carly and Shaka in the middle of that time where both of these women were coming on to share different perspectives about grief. Carly and her husband losing a stillborn, and Shaka and her husband losing a son that was a little bit older, but both just painful things. But it's been one of those episodes that, honestly, as I've been doing ministry, even literally a couple days ago, somebody was asking me as they were grieving through something, how to do it. And it was one that I sent like a neighbor who had just is suffering. So it's one of those in ministry that's been a great tool. And it's one of those that as I process, it'd be fun to, as we consider, and we might do this in the future, bring up some of the people back on that have shared their stories to hear more resolution and things like that. And so that's probably the one I cried the most in, but definitely one of the more powerful ones for me. And so,
yeah, it was really good. I feel like I have a top three, so I'm trying to. There's just so many of them that I was like, it's so hard. It's like I'm trying to whittle these down, and it's impossible. But I mean, I would have to mention the Kanye West episode that we did when he was releasing Jesus is King, and we had I'm a huge fan, so I got to have a fanboy moment there and talk about that. I really enjoyed the episode. I got to just talk to Mark about the election that was coming up and just kind of some of those really challenging conversations about politics and things like that. That was really good. But probably my favorite episode was QAnon and Christians. That's a topic that's really hit home to me over the past year, and just a lot of personal hurt because of some of that stuff. And I think that episode, we tried to do it justice the best we could with, talking about conspiracy theories and, how that relates to what people believe and their faith, and also just having those conversations respectfully with family members and friends. And I, don't think I ever figured it out fully how to do that perfect, but it's one of those things that it meant a lot to me in that moment to have that conversation, just because it was something that so deeply affected me over the past year, and just watching loved ones and friends get so wrapped up in some of that stuff. It was so destructive that if nothing else, it was good to just kind of talk through that and maybe have a moment of counseling here on the podcast.
Well, one of the things I really liked about that episode too is that was one we kind of every time we talked about it in a meeting, we're like, we need to have that conversation. We know people want to have that conversation. And then it was finally a guest was like, I need you guys to have this conversation. And he even shared, he said his favorite podcast was the QAnon and Christian episode. It's not something he expected the church to talk openly about, especially because he knows some of the people have been wrapped up in it. And he said it really helped him heal of some of his frustrations about it, and helped him be able to talk about it more productively with people that fall into that camp. And so that's something that he really appreciated. And so I was grateful for that.
Yeah.
I feel like most of the time, our most difficult episodes for us are the ones that afterwards we're glad we did it, because we get messages like that where it's like, thank you for talking about this in this space.
Yeah, and the gun control one for me was one of those too. It's always that balance of actually asking people for their opinions that are my friends, and seeing some of their opinions and how divisive that was, and how much. And I don't want to get too much into this right now, but I've learned how much defining terms matters, because they all carry so much different thoughts. And so, yeah.
Well, what are some of those stories that we can share from off-camera interactions where maybe an episode has sparked a conversation with people? Are there any stories that we're willing to share or can share?
Yeah, I mean, I've had plenty. I'm always shocked, and it's so fun, and honestly, it's humbling that people listen to this, and by the hundreds every week. And some people cherry pick, but there's a good contingency of people that are faithfully listening. And when they come up to us and they share real life stories, I was sitting in a meeting a few weeks ago, and a gentleman shared about that conversation, and a lot of people have with Precious that I had, because that was a vulnerable conversation. There's people that shared frustratedly that I didn't, attack or debate theological about that, but that wasn't the goal. But people that have just appreciated how we modeled that. I know we even had someone reach out, literally message both Precious and I, that has a dad. So they attend here. They have a dad who has transitioned. And so they really never expected to hear from a church, how to have this conversation with dignity and grace. And so that's one of them that and probably because it's a sibling of mine, that I've heard a lot of feedback on, and you just never know who's listening and how God's using that story in their life. So that's one.
I would say for me, just the cool part is people getting to know, first of all, getting to know us a little better. I hope that people that are listening, especially in our church, feel like we're approachable, and that you can come and talk to us without judgment. And definitely that aspect of withholding judgment, I feel like, has been one of those aspects that's allowed me to have many deeper conversations. I definitely feel like more people have come through my door in the past year than have been in the past, just to process, to share stories. I know I've texted you guys a couple times, even like being out in public and like at grad parties or at a wedding, and people coming up and saying, hey, like what you're doing is really encouraging me, or I've really been struggling with that. And just the things that we get to hear because we're being vulnerable, like allowing other people to be vulnerable. So to me, it's not one thing, it's a bunch of little things that I feel like we get to see kind of in the meanwhile, in between episodes of, hey, we had this conversation. It was really difficult for us, but man, this really helped somebody else process. Or just know that they have another person that they could come to at our church, or even on staff, that we could just have those difficult conversations with. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a specific, there's been several moments where people have just come up about a certain thing that, oh, I didn't know you went through this or that, or you were a pastor's kid, or, whatever. I think one interaction where I don't remember what episode we were talking about this, but I think it was something to do with the end times, and how, it's like, I didn't feel like my family really were preparing for my future at all, because it was just like, oh, the rapture is going to happen before you see high school or college or whatever. And someone came up to me and was just like, I never thought about it from that perspective. And it's just, sometimes you kind of live inside your own thoughts sometimes, and you don't realize that other people are able to relate to that. And so there's just a lot of powerful moments like that. But speaking of that, what are some of the things that we've learned about ourselves as part of this podcast? I mean, 100 episodes. It's given us some time. Been over a couple of years. I think for me, that's kind of what I mentioned as part of it, is just that too often I leave the context for things in my own head, and I'll say things, and I'll maybe get really passionate about something, but I don't let other people in on the context or the why, or even the history, my own circumstances or situations that I've gone through, personal experiences. Though that context matters so much, and sometimes people will just hear your words and go, oh, okay, well, they're this person because they said this, but without sharing the context. That's definitely something that I've learned that I don't do well. I don't always share the context. I just sometimes react to how I feel.
Yeah, a couple things I've learned. One is, I think vulnerability is one of those things that everyone's like, oh, it's so cool, we need more people doing that, but it's so costly. There's been times where, there's wins with it, because people come up to you and they're like, me too. But then there's also times where it upsets people, or you've shared something that's personal in a moment, and then, a family member's like, well, I didn't know that, or whatever. And so, and it's been fun as we've had guests on, to hear even them talk about that a little bit, that have been listeners, because there's a lot of times where you're so indignant and so impassionate about something that you are, thinking about, oh, if I ever got on there, if I ever had a chance to talk to somebody, then I'm just going to go in there and I'm just going to go in guns blazing, and I'm going to tell everybody how they're wrong. And even I remember at the beginning of this podcast, there was a lot of people like, you guys aren't like arguing with each other all the time, like kind of expecting. And so just how to have civil dialogue about all these things has been difficult. And it's been one of those things that, I have to count the cost of vulnerability, and it's been fun to see other people count the cost when they come on here and they're like, wait, this is going to be on YouTube and it's going to live on forever, and what I say matters. And so that's one of those things. And the other thing is, it's just reaffirmed to me that I am a person that words of affirmation definitely are a part of my love language. And so it's been good and bad. You know, when I hear affirmation from people, not like way to go, Alex, but when I hear that this is affecting people's lives in a positive way, it makes, me, for the next episode say, yeah, I want to keep bringing it. This does matter. But then there's moments you go 2-3 weeks in a row and people are listening to it because you see the stats, but then you don't hear anything, and my insecurities come out and I'm like, does this matter? Is this making any difference in someone's life? Are we just wasting our time? And so, so I'm grateful for those moments where people do share those, but then it also reminds me, man, it's sometimes lonely to feel like it's a one-way street of us putting out our thoughts and opinions and not always hearing back from people. They don't need to agree with me, but it's just good to hear, that there's perspective being heard. And so those are a few things for me. How about you, Jess?
I think for me, starting the podcast, I was kind of coming off of a difficult season of ministry where I think I was even facing some burnout and just not feeling super confident and just questioning, I guess, my seat at the table. I think a lot of us do that at different times in our lives. And so one of my things last year in 2020 was just to say yes to things that scare me. And, this was definitely something that scared me. I mean, just for reasons that you said. I mean, it's being vulnerable, but it's being vulnerable in a different way. Like, this kind of just seems like we're all super comfortable, like talking in front of a microphone and being on camera, but it's definitely hard. And it's one of those things where, for me, like I'm a counselor. Like, I've had clients that have said, like, I've listened to an episode of the podcast to decide if I'm going to come to the session today. And for me, like, I take it very serious. I know we joke around a lot, but it's one of those things where it's kind of, been really good for me. It's been really challenging. But it's also something that I've taken really serious. And I think for me, I don't keep a lot of things around in my life that aren't good for me or good for other people. And I think that for me, being a part of this podcast, just seeing the feedback that we've gotten and just the ways that this has challenged me, has been just a really, really good thing for me. And so, I'm going to keep doing it as long as those two things are happening. And so for me, that's probably one of the biggest changes that I've seen for me. How about you, Eric?
I already shared.
Yeah.
Sorry, you weren't listening.
Okay, guys, that was just like a vulnerable, like sweaty moment for me. So
I'm sorry. It's okay.
It's amazing how, like, seriously, when the lights are on, you're like, you forget things because you're just like, I just shared something, and it's that what I just said. It's like you share something, and then you're like, you're even playing in your mind. How did that come across? There's so many times after, like, I leave this room, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Because we don't go in and edit this week to week. We don't it just is, it's what we say. And there's been many times like, oh man, I hope that lands right. And I trust that the Spirit's going to use this. And so even that's like an example of one of those moments where you're like, I'm vulnerable.
I just laid it all
and
out
you like
there
black
for
out
everybody.
And you're like, did I just say that? How did it come out? And you start to, so it is difficult to do.
It's definitely a flow of consciousness. We're just talking and trying to share our feelings without, and making sure that you're represented well. And that is kind of what I was saying, though, is like realizing that the context of what I share matters, where it's coming from. The other thing is this, like, I know that each of us have changed over the past couple of years, probably, grown in different ways, learned from this experience. I know for me, this kind of goes hand in hand with what I mentioned earlier with context, but it's just learning to care more specifically about my words that I choose and understand that they matter to others because they can be so easily misunderstood. And I started podcasting in 2007, I spent a lot of years just kind of spouting my opinions on things on podcasts just because that's what I was comfortable doing. And, I didn't really worry about consequences or anything on that, but when I came to this podcast, it's like, I obviously still have opinions and things that I want to share, but I also know, that I want to represent the church really well, but I want to have these difficult conversations. But it definitely, I know for me, I've had to be much more just understanding of like, even though I'm in the moment and I'm just maybe trying to get a point across, and sometimes you can tend to be a little hyperbolic in those moments where you want to get a point across, and it's choosing those words carefully so that you aren't misunderstood or you aren't misrepresenting a situation or person or topic or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that I love seeing that in you, Eric. And it was one of those things where when I started the podcast, I didn't really know you super well. Like we've been around each other for years and years, but just getting to know you. And I mean, what you just said is true. Like you are a very kind person that maybe a lot of people don't get to know and see that side. And so I love that you have been super vulnerable on the podcast. And like, even when we talked about your wife and your daughter a couple episodes ago, and just the vulnerability it takes to share in that space, like you're a very kind person that cares a lot about people. And I feel like I have seen that from a distance, but being on the podcast, like it's really true. And you're one of those people where I feel like I can come and sit down in your office. And so, I think there is more to you. And I think that you have a lot of passion, behind what you say, but there is a kind person that genuinely loves people and wants to share the truth. If we're like, I just felt like I had to say that to Eric.
Now Alex is jealous of all those words of affirmation.
I got things I could say.
I remember.
Alex,
No, thank you for saying that, though. I do want to say thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
It just reminds me also every week I have a terrible resting face. There's so many times
Yes,
the
you do.
highlight goes out that Eric puts out, and I'm like, I look like I hate that right now.
Yeah.
And so,
Until
There
you're
is
learning
that.
to smile.
yeah. So while we're giving out gifts, okay, this wasn't planned, but I
have.
you gave out word gifts.
I could give you a verbal gift.
So I got some gifts for you guys to celebrate.
This was unplanned.
This was not planned.
This
I mean, it was
wasn't on-
planned by me, but
This was
you all don't know about this.
This
So,
wasn't on the agenda that I'm looking at now.
All right.
As Alex digs through his backpack, who knows what's going to come out of this?
All right. I've got some gifts. Okay. One,
Did you
I'll
jump
go
in
with
the
Jess
dumpster?
first. Gals first. Okay.
Gals first.
Gals first.
Okay.
We've got, of course, right here, we've got a Bang for Jess. Jess
Thank you.
loves herself.
Bang energy drink.
Bang energy drinks, and she loves CrossFit, so I know she loves those amino
She
acids
loves
beforehand.
true.
USA too. 'Cause
USA. Well,
it's an
I was-
American one.
Well, Hello World. That
Hello
reminded me
World.
of Hello World,
Oh.
and we are in America. I also got you a Quest. It's birthday cake because it's a celebration, 100th episode.
So
and both
cute.
of those really represent you in CrossFit. Eric, I
I'm
got
terrified.
a couple things for you. Okay. One of them is you. I feel like out of everybody, you bring the spice. You
You
do
are
bring the
spicy.
spice to the
Oh my.
podcast, and so I got you the Pocky.
Oh no,
It's cracked now.
it's broke.
Oh,
I got you the Pocky right here, the One Chip Challenge Carolina Reaper, extremely hot tortilla chip. So those are all the rage. And then I also got you a sticker.
That sticker. Thank you.
Got you. Hold on, where the sticker's harder to find in my backpack.
What am I supposed to do with this chip?
you eat the chip and then you
You
have
don't
to
have
wait.
to eat it on the podcast, but you're
Okay.
supposed to. You're supposed to eat those. It'll be good for your TikTok.
And you wait 5 minutes before you take a drink. It's
Yeah.
usually what people do. And you should probably
And you cry.
take
And
tongs.
you cry.
Take it out with tongs.
Yeah.
Oh my
You should
gosh.
not touch it.
But you bring the spice. I figure your social
are a
media people are
spicy
always doing
thing.
that on social media. Jess always talks about her TikTok eating, so I should have maybe got her that. And then this is a sticker. This is locally made, a sticker, but by one of my friends' companies. It says Nebraska. It's really not for everyone.
Honestly,
Honestly, it's not for everyone. Sorry.
Is that their full slogan now? Nebraska's full?
No, but since you are not from Nebraska, you are our Iowa,
Yeah.
our Iowa native, not
Thank you.
native, but
Yes.
I'm not a native of
I got
Iowa.
you that gift.
Wow, thank you. These both represent me very well. I don't
Spicy.
live in Nebraska, and I'm
I want
spicy.
to witness or watch.
Okay, I'm not
that
doing
chip.
that. I've seen
Not right
people
now,
do
but-
that, and we would have to.
I would
end
never.
the
I would never do it.
podcast.
I would
No,
never
not
do
right
it
now,
either.
but
Yeah. Okay.
But I think it's like one of those things that could sit on a shelf nicely.
Follow me on TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
I guess.
There you go.
Wow.
I didn't know when I was going to insert that. I felt like that was my moment.
That was the time.
There you go.
Yeah. I had to get through that emotional moment with something fun. No, thank you. It's very thoughtful. I didn't get you a gift, and now
It's
I feel
okay. You don't need to.
bad.
I knew that was the risk.
I did grab you a Coke Zero out of the fridge
did
before we started
earlier.
recording this.
Let that be known.
Okay, well, you could share how you've seen Alex grow through this experience.
We can just go into the top 10. That's fine.
Since you have been with Alex for almost all 100 episodes. You guys have been together since the beginning.
I would like to say we have so many behind the scenes conversations. We are very self-critical.
Yeah.
And one of Alex's, I think coming from, I'm used to preaching on stage or giving a lesson to students. The conversational side of a podcast, I think, was like kind of a growth spot for you, where it's like, how do I have these conversations, but also be like, you wanted your questions to be represented well so that people didn't misunderstand you. But I think early on, I remember you would ask these questions. Well, just these questions were very long that you would ask because you'd have to set it up with a lot of, and you've gotten so good at having conversations with people. And also just like, I had no idea the passion and work you'd put into this. And so I think the stuff you have to chase down and the guests that you have to get every, so often, and the personal cost that takes to, be vulnerable, invite these people, kind of almost like cold call people just to come and join this podcast. I mean, I know I appreciate all that work that goes into it that makes this a really special thing. And that's awesome.
Still working on one. Let's see if he shows up or not. But hopefully so.
Still trying to get a special guest.
Trying to get a special guest. Yeah. Maybe for 101. We'll see. That'd be fun. Well, that's awesome. We have a top 10 list, though, right?
No more saying that.
Okay, I was like, I don't get to go.
I mean, I like it, but just not. It's not like public, like I like the side.
We'll tell you later.
So yeah, thank you.
But I want to just affirm Jess though too, because I think you taking a chance on this was. Well, I mean, it was so beneficial. We all reap the benefits of that, because having your perspective, having your heart on here, my mind even goes back just to recently. We had the episode on Afghanistan and just the behind the scenes stuff where we're having these conversations and seeing your heart for these people, where it's like you're kind of coming on this and bringing yourself together and kind of holding those emotions back, because it's like, okay, we're trying to be as professional as we can on here. And I mean, just seeing the way that stuff broke your heart and just knowing that you're bringing this kind of almost raw emotional energy to this stuff sometimes that is lacking, because for me sometimes I turn into robot mode, very logical and practical. So it's just like, it's great to have that in the mix, and I think it's super helpful.
Thank you. We make a good team, all of us.
So Alex, yes, we'll get to the top 10. Alex, here we go. I skipped it earlier and that was my bad. I'm sorry. Just, we're being fully open on this episode. We're letting you in behind the scenes. I missed this. So this is the way we're going to end the episode today. Thanks everybody for sticking around. This is a weird episode probably for some people, especially if you're just kind of finding this. So hopefully it turned you on to some other episodes that you didn't know about, or, didn't know we'd
honestly, as we went through this list, it's 100 episodes is a lot. And so I forget sometimes, the conversations we've had about PTSD and school shootings and some of the fascinating conversations we've had. I have to go back and listen and remember them, because there's so many conversations. And so this was a good exercise.
So Alex, you went through and dug up the top 10 viewed episodes. Yep. So this, just for all the stat people out there, this is specifically on YouTube. So there might, who knows, but we'll just go through it. Number 10, becoming a minimalist with Josh Becker. That was episode number 44. Number 9, QAnon and Christians, personal favorite of mine. That was episode number 76.
Josh Becker, though, that was during our quarantine time too. So he zoomed in with us about that, and that was fascinating conversation. So
it was, it's. We were glad to have any guests during that time, so that was good. Number 8 was living as a gay Christian. That was episode 90.
Number 90, yeah.
We mentioned about Connor earlier, which obviously very grateful for his vulnerability in that episode.
Yeah, that started off that series, I think, really well. So,
Number 7 was Race and Reconciliation, Part 1. That was episode number 11.
Yeah, and we combined those because both of those were, a lot. But that was, and I was so grateful for that conversation because of the timing. Like it felt like proactive. And it felt like these are guys we have relationships with. And so after that, so much, not that there hasn't been times where, racism hasn't been at a forefront, but that was before George Floyd. It was before Breonna Taylor. It was before, a lot of those things took the world by storm. And so it was so great to be a resource to send people back to that wasn't just emotionally driven. So grateful for that.
Number 6, Porn and Sex Addiction, Part 1. That was episode 21.
Yeah, that was Robert Murphy joined us on that one, a former pastor, sharing his story. And we had some counselor, actually, so that was 2. So we had him on, share a story, and then we had some counselors from City Care. No, that was Nate and Sharon came on, and then they shared even more about sex addiction and how to get help. And so that's a big one for sure.
Number 5, How Do I Leave a Cult?
Boom.
That
Mackenzie.
was also the episode 5.
Number 5 and episode 5. Dave, we love you. We miss you. Have fun in California.
Number 4, Lisa Ashton, Surviving Larry Nassar. That was episode 51.
Yep.
Jess, you already talked a lot about that one. Another one of my personal favorites is number 3, is Kanye West a Christian? Episode number 13.
We solved it. So make sure you go back.
Go back and listen if you want to find out the answer to that.
We know if he's going to heaven or hell. So there you go.
Number 2, How to Cope with Loss, Part 1. That's episode number 8. That's been mentioned earlier. That was Alex's favorite. All right, and we need a drum roll. Yes, I don't. You can bang on your microphone this time. No, but our number 1 most viewed episode was Understanding Faith Deconstruction, episode number 6, a very early on episode.
Very early on, when I don't think we quite understood faith deconstruction.
We kind of, or the angles we took on that weren't the best, maybe, and I think that the comments on YouTube definitely let us know. That was early on when we were kind of finding our footing on this podcast, and it was something that I think a lot of people are searching for, so we might need to just redo that episode someday.
Well, I think that's part of being 100 episodes, but like basically a little over 2 years old is that even us as people and the world changes, some of our convictions probably are the same, but like I think how we approach them, that should be evolving. Yeah. And there's been fascinating podcasts that have come out, like the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. That's really highlighted in a deeper way some faith deconstruction and a lot more research done on it. And so it'd be fun to revisit. And so
But I think that does it.
Yeah.
For our 100th episode. It's a trip down memory lane. Here's to at least another 100 episodes. Again, we really appreciate all the support we've had from listeners, and with that, we would love to hear what you would want us to talk about. What guests would you like us to try to get on?
So much of that's been listener driven by different thoughts. So
it has, So keep those suggestions coming. Thanks, Alex and Jess, for 100 episodes, and thanks everyone out there. If you want to reach out to us, you can do that on social media at CCC Omaha, or you can send us an email to podcast@cccomaha.org. We'd love to hear from you. We'll read your email on the episode if you would like us to. So keep that in mind. But until next time, we'll talk to you then.